Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I'm so glad to have Caitlin Durning here with us. She is the CEO of Meraki Media Management, who's got an amazing journey from investing to now running a digital marketing agency from the East Coast, right? Philadelphia.
Yes, thank you so much, Philip. It's always so great to speak with you. I'm super excited for today. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, super excited to speak to you as well. And I know you just got done coming back from a vacation. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I'm excited to introduce you to the audience where you can kind of tell them how you got started in investing and what led you to taking that leap of faith to go into entrepreneurship some more as opposed to taking that traditional path.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say I fell into investing, which I know that I'm very fortunate, but it did come out of unfortunate circumstances.
Mm,
So when I was 15, my dad passed away. And because my parents were legally divorced, there's something called the Hollywood Law, which required me to run all the investments on my own once I inherited them. Luckily, I did have a trusty financial advisor to help me. Since I was 15, I really had no clue what I was doing. But I was very fortunate to have some amazing people around me, much like yourself and how you help people build wealth. So, what I was able to do was basically grow my income. I was able to put myself through college with my inheritance, buy my first home, and start my business. But I also would love to mention how much investing really taught me about business overall
mm,
and economics, understanding money, how the market flows, and being able to look at data and analyze it and then
right.
invest according to that.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky for that.
And well, I know it was a unfortunate situation, but I want to applaud you for converting it into a positive one because that's definitely not, I would say, a story that you hear from most people who might fold or might struggle a bit harder. But you seem to have come out unscathed and on top, right? What were some of the action steps that you took from as a 15-year-old, right, with a hefty chunk of inheritance money? Having the discipline, having the prudence to not, just go buy some new toys or whatever it is that teenagers love to do, but more so think about it like, hey, how can I really take this seriously and grow it? Like, did you have mentors? I mean, can you get specific on the resources that you leverage so you actually could use that right information to propel you further?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely had many mentors. First being my financial advisor, who is now retired, which it was like heartbreaking when
I
he
see.
retired.
Mm,
But he was great at guiding me on understanding the meaning behind money. And another
mm,
thing that a lot of people don't talk about in inheritance and, when you come into money quickly, right, is how it doesn't feel like yours sometimes. Like, especially when you're 15 years old
mm.
and you're still
Yeah,
figuring
that makes
out your
sense. Yeah,
identity. I'm like,
I
oh my gosh,
know.
is this even mine? Like, I felt like I was calling my dad when I would call my financial advisor to ask for money,
Ah, right, right.
so he was really great at always reminding me, this is your money, this is your investments, and here's how you go and you do research on where you want to invest. And
Mm,
he helped me understand, investments are really important. I was investing in long-term stock at that time because of
hmm.
my age. And he would tell me, it makes sense to put it here because of XYZ or research, on Yahoo Finance. The first day I learned about symbols was a big day for me.
Mm,
And I was then able to go and do research on, what was happening economically in the world at that time. And he was able to explain to me, this is why you should invest in things like Alibaba or Apple right now. And this is why you should maybe pull out of some of those other telecom companies that your dad
mhm.
inherited in stock over the years, because right now it just doesn't make sense. And that was really the ebb and flow of the conversation. And then I just started
I
to do a
see.
lot of the research on my own.
And once you got that momentum going, did you stay with investing into companies and stocks that allowed you to get an annualized rate of return, or did you try to compress that time frame a little bit earlier so that you could receive dividends faster?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that that's one thing that I maybe didn't understand at that age. And I
Hmm.
wish, hindsight 2020, that I would have taken more opportunities like that, especially with paying for college. And that was a large chunk of money coming out of my portfolio every year. That maybe if I was a little bit more strategic on dividends, it would have made more, just to be like
Mm,
super transparent with the audience as well. If you've ever
yeah.
made a bad investment, we all have, right, most of the time. And it's okay to say that, and I think you learn from those
Right.
investments and you can learn how to change. But the other person that was really a guiding light at this time for me was my grandfather, and he
Mm,
had invested in stock. He was an entrepreneur. He ran a real estate company for the majority of his life, and he was a great guiding light in my experience, actually why I bought my home, because looking
wow.
at things like hard assets and liquid
Yeah.
assets and what made sense.
Okay. And so taking that experience head on, that situation head on, did it alter your thinking of college? Like at 15, did you even think about going to college? Were you in between? I'm curious to hear like how it impacted your decision to go to college, and then ultimately after college, right, become an entrepreneur as opposed to
Yeah.
getting your 9 to 5, career.
Totally. It changed my life entirely. Honestly, before I got this inheritance, because I had no clue it was coming, my dad actually kept it a secret. So we got a
Sure.
letter in the mail, and I had no clue. At
Yeah.
one point, I thought I would never go to college. I'm from a very blue collar family. And, my mom, I wouldn't have asked her to pay for me to go to school. I would have taken out student loans and probably would
Mm,
have gone to community college, which is a great decision. Maybe I should have done for the first few years to save some of that money. But really, once I came into that understanding of investing in my education and I started applying to schools, I started reaching a little bit higher. And what I can tell you is that
okay.
really boosted my confidence. I'm someone that had a learning disability at a young age. I talk about this a lot on my platform. I had minor dyslexia. So I actually couldn't read until I was in third grade. So school was never like my thing. And I never thought that I would do well in school, let alone get into college.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and especially with the money aspect. So once I got
Mm-hmm.
into James Madison, which I was waitlisted, but I eventually called enough times and they let me in. I was really like boosted, right? I had this opportunity and I saw this education outside of my hometown where I had lived my whole life to really
Ah.
get to know myself,
And where is James Madison University? Is it in Philadelphia as well, or like in the same state? I mean, or
It's actually in Virginia. It's a
oh, it's
Virginia
in Virginia.
state
Okay,
school. Yeah, yeah.
okay,
And I went for communications. So they
mm-hmm.
have one of the best communication schools in the country. And I was very
Interesting.
fortunate to learn from those professors.
Okay, what kind of like why were they such a top school? What was their differentiating X factors?
They do a lot of data research collecting in communication.
There's your data again. Wow.
Yeah, I love data,
Okay,
and I love
interesting.
that part of college because we
Mm,
ran a lot of different research testing and I was able to
ah.
learn and break down data like directly
Mm.
from a consumer standpoint. So that made me think a lot differently about people, and how they communicate.
Yeah, so I mean, you could do a lot with data, right? I mean, what were some of like your thoughts on options as you like started to maybe become an upperclassman in college?
Yeah, I started out undecided and
Hmm.
then I found the communications school. I was very lucky. My cousin went there. She also graduated with communications. So I was following in her footsteps. And then the more that I learned about communications and the way people were communicating overall, like at a
Hmm.
standpoint of even within their head, right? Because communications is most of the time you're studying persuasion and psychology. I loved the way people think. Like I really enjoy getting down to that nitty gritty.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
as I graduated, I was like, social media was really starting to become a thing. Before it was really just a social platform. It wasn't really used for things like marketing
Did
until
you
I was
graduate like right at 16, 17 in that era?
Exactly. I graduated
Yeah,
2018 officially. And then I
18.
started working with online entrepreneurs actually when I was still in college. I worked with Kelly Roach, and I was able to help her get on her first TV show, actually. And now
Hmm.
she's a very well known online entrepreneurial coach. And that was such an amazing experience for me to see her ripple effect and see her grow. And she was the first person that exposed me to online entrepreneurship.
Interesting. So she gave you an inspiration of what could be possible.
Yeah.
And what did you do with that? How did you take that and run away with it?
I think at first I fell into the 9 to 5, like a lot of us do. I was in the rat race, right? And trying to survive. And I hated working my 9 to 5. I actually started working for a local nonprofit in the greater Philadelphia area after I graduated. And they offer direct benefits to cancer patients. My dad died from cancer. It felt like I was
Oh,
doing
okay.
a good thing, but
Sure.
I hated putting in those amount of hours and driving into work. It was like so against my intuition. Honestly, it's like
Mm.
who I am. So that was a really challenging time right after
You
school.
wanted autonomy over your own schedule, didn't you?
Yes. And I
Yes.
liked that about college. Like I liked
Yes.
to be able
It
to control my
absolutely.
schedule. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you more of a night owl or a morning person?
I'm definitely a morning person.
Okay, gotcha. I'm
Yeah.
more of a night owl.
I
So
can see that.
that's yeah, yeah.
And
So
like I
that's
feel like if
great.
you watch sports, right? You kind of have to be a night owl
Oh,
if you're
sure,
gonna
yeah.
be
No,
playing.
well, but I more so enjoy playing and training, right, than watching.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm a late night hooper more so than a morning hooper.
I love it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
everybody's unique. And that was one thing that I learned when I was in college. Like some of my roommates would stay up all night, but this 9 to 5 life was not working for me. It was like
Mm.
quite literally killing me. And then I launched a campaign with this local nonprofit where I took their
Okay.
Instagram following from 18,000 followers to 500,000 followers in 30 days through a campaign. That was the
Mm.
inaugural year. So we really were just testing out different theories and
Yeah.
it took off. And we raised $75,000. They were a small
Right.
family-owned nonprofit at the time, and now they've been able to grow and expand. And for such a great cause, it was awesome. But
Yeah.
then I realized, okay, if I could do this one time, why don't I try and replicate this? And I actually had clients just coming out of the woodwork, like hearing about the success that we had
Huh.
and approaching me. So I also fell into entrepreneurship, much like I fell into investing.
Yeah, you just love falling into things, don't you?
I was lucky, I was really lucky. Like I know a lot of people don't experience that. So
Sure.
that's why I like to share that part of
Well, but I also think the way that the universe works, it was a it was a unison of everything that you have done, and because of certain skill sets that you cultivated, or I intersected with certain opportunities, you were able to take advantage of that, and you decided to make the most out of it, right? And that's the most important thing, is seeing the opportunity and making sure to seize it as well, because they don't come by very often.
Yeah, exactly. It can be once in a lifetime, just like with what you all do, and how you help your clients.
Yeah, so absolutely. For you then, when you're so passionate about data, right? Did you ever think that you would use your data analysis skills to marketing, or because of that investing background, did you ever think maybe you would do something with finance?
I always thought I would do something in finance. Like I
Okay.
still know, I'm going to be 30 next year. I'm getting married and I do feel like there's a long
Congratulations, by the
Thank
way.
you. Thank you so much. There's a long road ahead of me, right? And like going through my life and having these really crazy cosmic experiences honestly happen, which didn't always feel like a blessing at times. But as I've gotten older, I've been able to harness that. I know more is out there for me. I
Mm.
know that data is a really strong skill set of mine. And the more I can learn about it and the more I evolve and grow, who knows what will come next from me.
So, talking about figuring out that next step, what do you see for yourself right now? What are you passionate about? Is it blowing up that digital marketing firm some more, right? Obviously, you have an interest in the markets as well. Is it a hybrid approach? why don't you share with the audience what do you see for your 30s now, the next decade?
Yeah, I love it. It's really exciting. It feels like something's bubbling up to the surface,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and for me, like I mentioned, sometimes the path just is laid out. Like I don't really know when the opportunities come, but I would definitely say it's more hybrid. I've always thought, I'll build the agency. I love working with my clients. It really is such a passion of mine to help business owners because I feel like I've invested in businesses for so long that I understand their struggles or how CEOs think about things. And being a business owner myself totally enhanced that. And when it comes to investing, I've always wanted to do real estate investing, much like my grandfather. But the markets is something that I'm very, very passionate about. And the more that I expand and the agency can really run on its own, I believe
Hmm.
that I will able to have it all, hopefully.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Especially now that we're working together,
Yes.
we're certainly going to focus on generating liquidity and cash flow through digital assets like the markets. But of course, as we grow, real estate would be part of the portfolio, and who knows, maybe we'll get into private equity, right? Luxury timepieces are and exotic cars are also on the list.
Ooh,
So I don't know about you, but for me, private planes and jets, they're cool. They are more so a practical time eraser to make things more efficient. But I've always been a car guy. I'm a car enthusiast.
I love that. I worked with Rolls-Royce Bentley for a while, so I love those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, maybe you can make a quick phone call so I can have my Phantom now.
100%. I'll call them up. They ship all over the country, sometimes the
Awesome.
world, so they'll come to you.
Awesome. And in regards to your digital marketing, just so the audience get a bit more understanding, like, are you industry agnostic because of your data-driven skill set, or do you have a preferred industry that you like to work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Over the years, right, I started my agency when I was 22. I worked with entrepreneurs before then. I really have done a lot of different industries. And I like
Great.
to say, the people that we work with tend to be very intuitive CEOs or they're intuitive marketing. They're
Mm,
approaching intuition and marketing very quickly. They understand authentic marketing. They know that sometimes you don't have to overpay to create a really great Instagram reel, and you can just create that from your phone, and how to create that, right? How to craft that message where we're not always following the shoulds, but maybe we're following what we think we should do, because that's what I've seen, at least in marketing, really start to take off over time. Of course,
mm.
using data, but not just data, combining both of those things.
Absolutely. Oh, that makes total sense. And for you when you speak to other people, because your story is so unique, and I feel like you can be such an inspiration for maybe younger girls and even female entrepreneurs and different demographics. What are some takeaways that you want to share from this 15-year journey that you've been on, right? In terms of wisdom points, pitfalls to avoid, right? Your biggest like maybe lesson that you still carry with you.
Yeah, that's such a great question. There's so many lessons that come with entrepreneurship, and this business has challenged me mentally more than anything in my life has ever challenged me, even losing my father at 15, all of these opportunities, but especially when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it's
Mm,
given me a chance to look at the sides of myself that maybe aren't my most efficient or my most shiny self, and it's also given me the space to address those parts of myself and harness them, or maybe even change them at times. So
it's
that's
it's such a character building journey, isn't it?
it really is. It's changed my life, for the better. But like in the immediate, you're like,
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I call it my naked mole rat moments. I was on with a client earlier today. We were talking about this because it just shows you all of the things, right? All of the beliefs, all the negative thoughts, everything
Ah,
bubbles up to the surface.
is that your spirit animal, or you're a mole rat?
I love it. Actually, I would say I'm more of a dolphin, but like they kind of look the
Okay.
same. So I
Okay, gotcha.
go with
I needed to know because I'm a fellow Jayhawk, and no matter what, that is my only spirit animal. So I was curious to what yours is.
That's great. That's so awesome. Yeah, that's hilarious.
So to go in a bit more detail, right, in terms of like things that you've learned, to either do again or avoid, right? Like, what would you say are the most painful ones that have shaped you today? Obviously, the inheritance situation what was something that you couldn't control, but in the sense of like things that you can control.
Yeah, yeah. Really deciding who you want to work with and
Oh,
knowing who
okay.
they are, ahead of time, whether that be your client, a coach, someone that you're hiring, right? A business partner. Not that I've had any type of legal issues, like I know a lot of people have, but
Hmm.
I believe that if we consume information from someone that is misaligned, it has thrown me off, right? Or maybe misguided me in business. It's not that coach's fault. It's not that client's fault. It's me being too malleable and maybe not understanding where my boundaries are. So, even though those were really hard and challenging times, it
Hmm.
also shaped me, right? But for anybody listening that's young in entrepreneurship, be very mindful. Contracts are your best friends, having things in writing ahead of time, and just protecting yourself in business, especially in my experience. A lot of
Hmm.
people, not that they intend to take advantage, but they'll hear my story, right? And they think that I have all of this money, right? And that's not always the truth, but that was a part of my experience, and I share it on.
Uh,
So I have to be mindful of that.
yeah, because you're not. I mean, because they think, oh, I got a golden goose egg here, right?
Yes.
And not knowing to the full extent of the story and the intricacies that go along side of that. Now, if you are someone that's on the verge of entrepreneurship versus career, what do you have to say about that? Because yours kind of naturally unfolded, right? Kind of curious, when you reflect on it, what do you have to say about that, and how do you decide, right, if you're on the fence?
Yeah, this is such a great question. I mean, for years, right, I pondered over this even when I was in college, and I didn't know that I would be an entrepreneur, but I knew something was bigger out there for me. So,
Mm,
if you as a listener feel that pull, feed it. Don't ignore it. Don't ignore the signs. Even if it's just small things that you're doing every day, you can build a business very rapidly, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. It's really more of a choice. But if you're having that little voice in you, feed that voice, listen to it, and follow your gut, because you may regret it. I was talking with a client earlier today on my
mm,
consulting side of the business, and we were really getting into the nitty gritty, right, of what people
sure.
sometimes say on their deathbed, right? We don't want to be the people that look back.
No,
I didn't take the risk, right?
I know.
I didn't go for it. So it's the same in investing, I believe. And that's what I told
Hmm.
myself when I was 15. If I would regret investing in this company, then I should buy it. I should buy it right now.
I
And
love
I
that.
shouldn't look back. And that's
Yeah.
really how I feel about myself, right? Like once I realized I'm my best asset, I feel like Philip, you're the same way. Once you get that concept, you really start
Hmm.
to think about your life. So
Yeah, it is true. I mean, for me, I read the book On Living during my master's, which was my pivotal moment where I left medicine to go into entrepreneurship. It was really a huge facade to say that I was busy, but I was really reflecting and exploring my next steps in life. A lot of things professionally, personally, financially, and this book it was a compilation of people's interviews by a nurse while on their deathbeds. And basically, like after going through all of those stories, I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to live with regrets. Like I don't, I mean, I don't resonate with how you can be like 80, 90 and then like still not done something that you're thinking about from 30 years ago. Like it just, that was really absurd. But also like when you talk about lessons, you can learn from your own experience, but you can also learn from others. And I was like, that's definitely one that I'm going to take to my heart. But look, kudos to you because business is definitely not an easy path. But what I think, it is easier to do is to follow the signs so that you can stack momentum.
yeah.
And as you stack momentum, things will compound. Like Einstein said, right? Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. So if you do it the right way, then the right people will show up to help guide you to that next step that you need in order for your business to grow.
Yeah, it's so true. And Einstein actually had dyslexia as well. I love talking about Einstein and his approach to
Really?
the world. Yeah, very, very interesting, because people that maybe have a different outlook, like
Mm.
may have experienced some type of dyslexia, and I believe entrepreneurs have a different way of thinking. Like there's something wired
You
within
have
us.
to. You
Yeah,
have
you have
to.
to be a little crazy, like you got
Yeah.
to be a little bit out there,
Right.
in a good way. And I think that Einstein's a great example of somebody that totally went
Mm.
for it and
I
saw
mean,
something different.
that's why, I study success principles so much, and I prefer to study wealth and successful people and their inputs, because if you study 10 or 20 of them, even though they come from different backgrounds, different industries, different success stories, you are going to find commonalities, right? And one of the ones that we, I mean, even the guy that created the radio, the Wright brothers who created the airplanes, right? It's like the concept was so new that they put the guy in an asylum because he was talking about transmitting frequency in the air where the other person on the other side of the continent can hear you. I mean, in those times, right? That's why he got thrown into an asylum. But it's one of those things where it's like it's tried and true. Again, if you want to see a change in the world, be the change yourself, and you have to conduct yourself accordingly. And at the beginning, it's going to be very difficult because not everyone's going to see that vision that you have,
Yeah.
right? So having a vision, staying with it, operating with faith, embracing resilience, embracing reinvention of yourself, embracing, the fact that you have to constantly upgrade your own software, because you have to grow, you have to acquire skill sets, you have to stay in touch with the ever-changing, evolving landscape of business and the markets and the economy. I mean, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot, but the rewards are great, right? And so if you're willing to put that time, dedication, that work in, and you are also able to do it with passion and
Yeah.
fulfillment, that's what I think makes it the easiest to carry out.
Definitely. Like if you're not being fulfilled by your business, normally that's red flag number
Yeah,
one. And
I
it
know.
may be the business, right? It may be the product, it could be the service, or it's within, and
Mm-hmm.
then that's more of a deeper conversation. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. I think that
I love
everyone,
it.
should go through
Yeah.
this development
Yeah,
process.
no, I mean, I was having a conversation with one of my clients yesterday, and his podcast will be released. He's one of our top successful students, where he took 70K to 900K in 5 weeks, and then on the 6 week, right, it's 1.212. But and he just made more yesterday and today. But the idea here is, as I got to know him and his story, he was like, I studied these markets for 12 to 13 hours over the weekend, and I didn't even feel drained. And that's when I was like, okay, so you love this. And he's like, yeah, like I love this. And I was like, that's why you're one of our top case studies. Like it just made so much sense, and he was saying how he still enjoys servicing his clients on the business side of things, but he was like, it's just a distinct like dip that he's experiencing once he's done with the markets in the morning, to have to hop on a call to service his clients. He's like, it just doesn't feel the same anymore. So he's looking to like just commit to the ones that he wants to really help, but focus on the markets full time. But again, I mean, that's another commonality, right? It's however much passion you have is however far your plans will be carried out.
Yeah, it's almost like that shift comes at the perfect time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he's maybe ready for that. He's ready to do what he wants to do. And a lot of us business owners, we fall into, at least in my experience, I fell into
Mm-hmm.
people pleasing, right? And I saw that
Oh wow.
of myself and how I couldn't say no, and I'm trying to perfect
No, you got to be more selfish.
exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
horrible at that, right? So that was what entrepreneurship has given me. And, when your clients come to you and they're ready to take on the next step, it's probably
Yeah.
the timing.
Well, and actually, more so than even being selfish is the prudence of is the oxygen mask, right? In airplanes, if you want to help other people, like you got to take care of yourself first, right? Oh, I just had another podcast the other day. Don't pour from empty. Pour like the champagne in your wedding, right? Where it overflows. Because my client was saying how if you look at the top champagne in that on the lineup, it is overflowing with abundance. And what happens is it flows into other champagne bottles, glasses, and then those other ones flow into others through their overflow, right? So that's another, really important point to address as well. But look, Caitlin, I love talking to you. We can talk all day. I appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your personal journey. What is the best way for those listening? They really resonate. They want to get to know you more. What is the best way for the audience to get to know you and directly have access to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure. And a great place to find me and learn more about me is on my Instagram account, MERAKI_media_management. Feel free direct message me over there. And then you can also check out my website. I have a lot of information on there, and that's just MerakiMediaManagement.com.
And there you have it, Caitlin from Philadelphia. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.